Or if you're overwhelmed, like, how am I going to get clients? Greg, I'm not a extrovert like you. I can't go hustle. What systems do I do? How do I bring in new clients? Podcast is the easiest and greatest way to do it. Podcast allows you to have 52 conversations with potential prospects. If you're using podcasting, build your know, like, and trust, build your relationships as your business development tool. There's so much power to having a podcast, especially as a solopreneur, that you'll build out all these brand assets. So that your quote unquote marketing assets, if you're overwhelmed, all comes from the conversations you get to have with the podcast.
Welcome to Beyond the Business Plan. I'm LeAnn Lyon, your guide on this journey to success. We will explore the inspiring stories of visionary leaders and groundbreaking entrepreneurs and unveil the tools and strategies that can empower you to manage your business from anywhere in the world. Join me, LeAnn, as we learn, laugh, and take the leap towards unleashing your joyful business journeys. And let's make it happen. I love this quote. Life is about time and relationships, and you never know where one conversation may lead. Greg Wasserman doesn't just live by this motto. By the way, so do I, but he's built an entire career around it. Greg has worked around the podcasting ecosystem, leading 3 listening platforms, helping to shape an AI-powered content repurposing tool. It's a mouthful, but it's awesome, and is now serving as, I love this, head of relationships at RSS.com, one of the world's top podcasting hosting providers. By the way, they power this show too. But his impact doesn't stop there. Greg is a connector across industries, known for creating conversations that spark unexpected opportunities. So if you value meaningful connections and big picture thinking, Greg is someone you'll want to know. And it is my privilege to introduce him today. Greg, are you there? Come on.
Hey.
Price is right.
That studio's down the street from me. There you go.
Really? Okay, you gave it away. You're in?
Los Angeles.
There we go. Yay. Well, thank you for joining us today. I have loved being on RSS, and it's been a privilege to get to know you over the last few weeks, really, as we've dropped this. And it's just it's great to see you.
Likewise. Thanks for having me and everyone listening.
Well, let's just jump into it. Are you native, first of all? I'm kind of curious. Native California?
No, I'm from Chicago. Came out here for college and just never left. The weather's just too nice to leave, and I'll pay the sunshine tax.
I'll pay the sunshine tax. That's often. How long have you been involved with technology?
20 plus years. I started my career at Yahoo. I guess if you look at it from that standpoint, background's in media sales. I did about 15 or so years in media before moving into partnerships. And then somehow the last 4 years, it's been around podcasting.
Phenomenal. Well, Yahoo was a big thing for me. When my parents retired about 26 years ago, we had a big send-off party and we did the whole Yahoo.
Heard that song. We've all sung it so many times. We all bleed purple and gold.
Well, that is Viking football colors.
This is true.
Yeah, I liked Yahoo. I wanted Yahoo to be the leader. I was so sad when I heard they had the opportunity at one point to buy Google and didn't do it.
The opportunities were so plentiful there. And then, 5 CEOs in 5 years. I'm like, you guys, I just can't do this anymore. It was early in my career and I just needed something different.
Yeah, well, we have to take care of number one. And you can believe in a company all you want, but ultimately, if there's a mismatch, and this happens in business all the time, if there's a mismatch, sometimes you just have to move on. So you are now with RSS.com.
Yeah. And I like that point. Knowing when to move on is the hardest thing I think most of us go through. It's like, I need the job. I need this. I'm burnt out. I am unhappy, but it's a struggle it's a juggling act that we go through.
100%. I was a burned out teacher in 1999. And I thought I would go back, but ultimately, when I got a taste of the freedom and the availability to work more on my own schedule, even as an outside sales rep, I just realized I couldn't return to that box without a window.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So that is a struggle. We talk on beyond the business plan. We do talk to a lot of burned out professionals, and you've made a couple transitions. So can you describe what was it like for you? How did you know it was time to move on, and how did you move on?
I guess I'll eat my own words, right? Knowing when to move on. I had a job that I knew I needed to move on from, but it was the struggle. I didn't know what I wanted to do next. The paycheck or the opportunity of that job just kept me in. And it came down to, where do I go? What am I looking for? What is going to, quote unquote, make me happy? I didn't have an answer. So the opportunity came when a former coworker of mine's like, Greg, I'm at this new company. I think you'd be great. You want to come here? And I went and joined him there, knowing still it wasn't what I wanted, but it was a far better opportunity than where I currently was. And so I'm like, all right, where's the universe taking me? I'll lead that door. And then the door closed. And the next thing you know, I was struggling, going, all right, what do I do now? And so the best time to be unemployed is summers in LA. At least that's what I told myself. And so I took some time off, and I'm all right, let's decompress. Let's figure this out. Let me figure out what is it that I'm looking for, which is a hard thing to do in introspection. But also, if we go back to the quote, life is about time and relationships. For me, it was, all right, how do I just keep turning open doors? How do I figure out new relationships? Where are these paths take me? And looking at that externally as an opportunity that I can go ahead and find the next gig.
Yes, excellent. Did you use the traditional Ben Franklin T, pros, cons, as you went through the process?
My mom loves the tea. I do it in my mind. I don't really write it down. It's just not my style. I know I should probably do more tea charts, but I've never been one on doing the pros cons. Let me write it down. I may journal about it. I may type it out, the actual tea chart. Yeah, I've never been one for that.
Me too. Here's my journal. Never done a T. Unless I had to, like, as part of a class or something like that, they'll kind of have you do it. But yeah, generally, I find. So, are you a writer as well?
No, I'm
No.
so the last company I was with was a AI content repurposing engine. And the joys about that is they had a mobile app, or they have a mobile app. So I could just ramble my thoughts and literally walk around my apartment, go for a walk, whatever the case may be. And let me just ramble things, have the transcription, and then have that write for me. Cause I haven't written a paper in like 20 years and I wasn't the best at that. So now to sit down and trying to write something, it's just, let me talk it out. Let me think it out, as opposed to let me type it out.
100%. Now, you said that was an AI thing, and AI is relatively new-ish. It doesn't feel like it some days. We're so comfortable with it now. But so how long ago was that you were able to do that? Were you in on the ground floor is kind of my question.
Yeah, I mean, they had their MVP was January and February, and I joined them in March and April. So pretty much October was OpenAI's crash to the world, if you want to look at it that way. And they built the product then 2 months later, and I joined them 3 months after they started the company. So yeah, I guess it was the ground floor, and all this new AI tech that we as consumers are thinking about, but we think about AI, and I know most people that when I talk to that are in it, they're like, Greg, this has been around for a while. The consumer's just now living in it.
Yeah, for sure. And I know I was with the platform that was using AI, started using it almost right away when it became available. They incorporated it into the platform. But for me to actually start using the chat feature for more than a cute little poem, which of course I did, but to really start using it to generate content and to do things took me a while. Now, I mean, now I use Perplexity. I think you've mentioned you use a different one. We can talk about it, but where it knows my life history. I spent 2 hours one time being, okay, when I was 18, I did the whole thing that you don't want to do with a person. When I was 18, this happened, 19, this happened, gave it my life history, and then asked it to summarize, who am I? What do I stand for? What are my values? What do you think are my hurts and my joys? And tell you what, it wasn't too far off. It's kind of wicked.
I mean, if you think about that, since everyone that's listening and we're probably burnt out people, AI now has changed the game. I can go to a career coach, which I still recommend one doing, but using an AI tool to go, hey, here's what I like. Let me just word vomit, or let me just, as you did, let me give it my background and go, here's my pains. Here's the kind of person I am. What should I be doing? What kind of culture should I be looking at? What kind of bosses? What is going to be needed for me in whatever it is I do? Or how do I create my own culture? We're thinking about how do we go down the entrepreneur path?
Absolutely. 100%. I love it. I am blessed to have an amazing backyard. And even in the winter, I will take my AI for a walk and do exactly that. You hit the microphone button and I think you use the word vomit. Just keep going. Just keep stream of conscience is a more polite term, I suppose, and do it. In fact, this morning I was working with one of my VAs, which stands for virtual assistant for anybody not in the lingo. And I came up with a whole new journey that people can take with me. And it didn't come out though until I was talking to and with another person. So let's talk about that community and how important it is to not just be a solo entrepreneur. You work with a lot of entrepreneurs.
You do. You aren't alone, right? Because you're always probably be connecting with others. You are going to be partnering with other people because at the end of the day, you can't do it all. You shouldn't do it all, but you want to be able to get clients. You want to be able to say, hey, yes, and here's someone else, or you white label it. These are all the things. It goes back to relationships. For me, no matter where you are in your life journey, but if you're thinking about starting your own company, connections are be key because you're with thousands of questions. I mean, I know for me, when I started just to create my LLC, I asked everyone because it was so overwhelming. It was confusing. I'm still trying to figure this out.
Uh,
But yeah, I think that's a key piece.
My episode 6, I interviewed a young lady, I believe she's 71 now, who has a podcast. And she calls her name is Charla Anderson, if anybody wants to check it out. Collector and connector of fascinating people, and everyone is fascinating. So I think that sums up that, first of all, there's no relationship that's not worth at least exploring a little bit. But you don't have to accept every relationship either. We could get into that a little bit. But you are not alone as a solo entrepreneur. There's a quote out there also that says the overnight success was 5 years in the making.
I mean, I think that's a key piece we all need to remember is where I want to go. I may not get there. We talk about podcasting. If I go and look at most podcasters, we joke in the industry, you want to be the next Joe Rogan, but Joe Rogan started off as an 80s comic in New York, grinding because that's what he knew he wanted to do. If you are starting your journey, it's okay to take that step back, to look at yourself, but also realize it's all about consistency. The longer I stay in this, the more doors I open, the more times I say yes or no, because we get burnt out because we probably said yes too many times, but those are all key factors to success.
Yeah, I love it. Love it, love it. Yeah. In fact, even naming this podcast Beyond the Business Plan came down to talking with my AI, saying, hey, this is what I do. This is how we're going to go. This is what I do. This is who I interview. This is our audience. What do we name this? And it didn't come up with the name completely, but it got me close. And then that's where I kicked in is, nope, this is what we're going to do. There can be a combination, and AI can be a tool, a technology. It can be a partner to a degree, but ultimately, we're working with people. Even whatever you create, whatever content you create, even with AI, you may want to have trusted people partners that you still run things past. Any comments on that?
Oh, I mean, that's exactly what you need. Use AI. We all should be leveraging it because it's going to open up our eyes to realms we didn't even think about. The questions I could ask it is going to help give me a framework, but at the same time, it's giving me things that I never even thought about. And that becomes a key piece. But you can also then that's why I say life is about time and relationships. The one thing AI won't replace will be people, the connections that we've got, and how we're able to leverage each other for support, for a additional service that we may be thinking about, bouncing ideas off of each other. AI is good in that quote unquote realm, but it still comes down to the personal connections. And if you aren't creating those opportunities, if you aren't opening those doors, if you're not raising your hand right now and having those conversations, A, you're not forging these new relationships, but B, you're missing out on a huge opportunity for where conversation can take you. You don't know where that is. If you're controlling, I don't want to talk to this person because I already know where this conversation's go. You're already limiting yourself to the possibility of where that may be.
Yeah. Even when I've been married for 30 years. And
Congrats.
thank you. But when I was back in the dating scene, yeah, I realized even then, you could have a first date and it might go amazing or it might not go so great. But if the other person wanted a second date and I felt safe, there'd always be a second. But if I wasn't ready or wanting a third, there just wasn't a third. I wasn't wasting time. And it's not that I wasn't, I was perfectly fine being alone. I was perfectly content on my own. Yes, I would find somebody to share life with, and ultimately I clearly did, but I wasn't worth putting up with something that wasn't exciting. One of my earlier episodes, Javier from Spain said, choose who you want to do hard things with. Because it's easy to do fun things with almost anybody. But it's when you come down to, who do you want to work through the hard things? Now, you have a really cool title, I got to say. Head of Relationships. That's amazing. Tell us a little bit about that before we take a quick break coming up.
I guess my previous company, that was it was the head of my title changed so many times. Because when you're working in a startup, you're all right, you're doing this, but we need you to do that. But I'm like, the title doesn't match all this. What do we look at? And ultimately it became, what is Greg's function? It's relationships, whether it is building the community and talking to our customers, whether it was talking to prospects, whether it was talking to anyone in the market. That's what my value is. It became a key piece to go and hold on. This is what I say every day. Life is about time and relationships. That's what my role is. Let's pick a title that encompasses all the things I'm doing. And I loved it. And I'm great. This is be my title no matter where I go. My company's called Time and Relationships LLC. So it's truly just a part of not only who I am, but the roles and the companies I kind of create.
Cool. And so Time and Relationships LLC, do you then partner with companies, or so you are an entrepreneur? Or is that still just a side hustle on a W-2?
No, I'm 1099 with RSS.com. So I guess Time and Relationships LLC is Greg and it's the company. And so there's the different sides of it, the consulting side, as well as the relationship brokering side.
Beautiful. We're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit more about RSS. I want to talk about just podcasting in general, because I think the opportunity to be an influencer is a really big thing that, quite frankly, many burned out professionals would be perfect to do. We'll talk a little bit more when we return.
Hey, sales setters, are you ready to jumpstart your entrepreneurial journey or give your business a powerful refresh? Join us at the next Restart Your Business Summit, where you'll discover the tools, strategies, and inspiration you need to thrive. Learn more at joyminder.com. That's JOYMINDER.com. And look for the Restart Your Business Summit. Don't miss out. Your future business awaits.
And we're back. My name is LeAnn Lyon. I am the host of this show. Beyond the Business Plan. Today, my guest is Greg Wasserman, who is an entrepreneur who has worked at major companies and has the coolest title ever as head of relationships currently working with RSS.com. Greg, I've heard of RSS for a long time. In fact, I had a podcast for 2 years, and my guests would often say, I can't find you on RSS. And I kind of vaguely knew what RSS was, but I was intrigued when I found out that there was an RSS.com. Is it the same thing?
No, I mean, that's the great thing about marketing and branding. RSS feed, RSS stands for real simple syndication. The technology's been around for a while. I couldn't give you the history lesson if you asked me to, but the company, RSS.com, is a hosting company. 2 founders, Ben and Alberto, 2 different companies. Alberto in Italy and Spain was working in academia, working and created a whole podcast platform. And Ben here in the States was working on the RSS feed reader that most of us, if we think about 90s, late 90s and early aughts, in terms of how do I aggregate my articles and then get them fed to me so that the reader side. And
Yeah.
they ultimately came together and created the hosting company that we now are one of the top hosting companies in the world.
Mind blowing that they got it. How long have they owned RSS.com?
I think Ben bought it in 2017, 2016, maybe.
Get out.
No.
What? I mean, I know people who own hundreds of URLs just in case. RSS.com would have been one that you'd think somebody would have bought up and held. My domain was bought up and held. I actually, that's a whole different, really kind of cool story, but we won't go there right this second. Very cool. I just suspected what you were talking about, but I wasn't 100% clear. 17, though.
I mean, look, I'm going to have to probably go check myself on this, but I know the company started then. So I think Ben bought the domain around that time. Maybe he had it, maybe he was sitting on it, but I can't remember now.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. We can always go into who is and find the history.
There you go.
It's
But I
just,
mean, but it's been an incredible ride to see where they've gone and how they've built that. But I mean, it's a bootstrap company. For anyone that's listening, if we go into domains, if you've got an idea, I've missed the boat on this, but it's $10 to buy a domain. Might as well go ahead and squat on a couple of those domains. Something could happen and someone be like, hey, LeAnn may be hitting you up saying, I want to buy that domain. And you're, wow, I had the great idea. Someone was thinking about this now too. I'm glad I bought that domain. Or maybe you end up actually using it. It's the butt kicking you needed to get you to take the chance.
okay. I'm going to tell you my story just briefly. I bought the domain Joyminder way back in early 2000s, really early. I had an idea of what I wanted to do. I was home with babies. I thought I had all this time. I didn't. And ultimately, the technology of what I wanted to do in my head was not possible at that time. And eventually, I just stopped buying the domain. When I had a company close in 2019, the day after, I'm sitting on my couch looking at my phone. What am I going to do? And an old email popped up with joyminder.com in the bottom of it. How you can attach things. That's cool. I click on it and they wanted $400 for it. Well, being now unemployed, nope, not buying it. So I bought joy-minder.com, built it up. As I built it up, that domain became worth $1,000, $2,000, $3,000. And I kept not being willing to pay that to get it. 2 years ago, about this time, I got a random email and it said, would you like to buy joyminder.com for $100? I'm like, so yes, and such a scam, right? This is absolutely 98% a scam, but also not, I'm willing to lose $100 to see if it's real. So I got a credit card that was not my credit card, not attached to a bank. I went through the whole process. I own it. Joyminder.com is mine.
What happened that the person decided to throw away the $3,000 that they were offering and then take a major downgrade into the price from 400 to 100?
I have no idea. He ultimately came over and basically gave it to me.
Wow.
Yeah, domain. Anyway, this is a little off topic from what we usually talk about, but it isn't, because if you're thinking about starting a business, to Greg's point, go check the URL. Go get it. I know somebody who wrote a book recently, and I love the title, but guess what? Somebody owns the domain. But even when you're looking at writing a book, starting a business, always get the domain first. Worry about the LLC later.
True. I did not do that, and it worked in your favor. I can't comment on mine yet because it's too early to tell, but it's a lesson to know.
Well, and then you have the inspiration. Get to the point that you can just buy it, because that's always a goal.
Yeah. I mean, if we go back, AIs allow you to come up with a bunch of names that you may be thinking about and go buy the domains.
Yeah. And back to AI, it's valuable. We'll take this transcript, we'll run it through AI. It'll suggest various names. Usually one or two will pop out. I'll ask it to give me the pros and cons of each for the specific audience or for the whatever is going on. And we go from there. It's, descriptions, everything else. Now, how long then have you been working with podcasters?
Podcasting 4 years. Yeah. I mean, I would say we look at my early days, how I got into podcasting from a media standpoint. I used to sell podcast ads when I was in the radio realm, but that's what's allowed me really to help podcasters now, because most podcasters, not yourself, but most podcasters are thinking about, how do I build and get more downloads, and how do I just keep getting and chasing this metric in hopes that they'll be able to monetize it. I would say for anyone that's listening, most of the people that are listening should be starting a podcast, no different than you have, is a way to build their brand, build their know, like, and trust. You're not thinking about downloads. You don't care about that, because I got paid hundreds of thousands of dollars as a career to go sell podcast ads. Your job is probably better getting clients or whatever the business is that you end up creating. That's where the podcast is be valuable. I'm not trying to go ahead and say, hey, how do I get a sponsor for this show? That's pay you pennies compared to what will actually help you and your business.
Well, I am not allergic to building and growing downloads at all. In fact, but I do see it as a progressive thing. You don't get 1,000 downloads usually on your first episodes. In fact, how long does it typically take a podcaster to grow that download? And maybe what is the best process for that?
I mean, that really is it depends answer. A lot of it come down to how much of the strategy and prep you did beforehand.
Mhm.
Did you optimize your titles and descriptions? Did you do all the SEO keyword researching that you thought about? That would make sure the show name that you're picking, the graphics you're picking, all of these things go into play. Did you do the research to figure out, how do I even promote my show once I launch this? There's a lot of resources out there in terms of doing that. If you're just like, I didn't do anything, I just hit record and I publish, no one knows about it, and you're probably not help yourself on the growth standpoint. It really does depend on what kind of, and that's where I think the prep of starting your podcast is not overwhelm in terms of what mic do I get, what equipment do I use, how do I get the lighting and everything else. There you go. Anyone that isn't watching, right? LeAnn just showed her mic, right? So you've got too many times a person is not going to start because they're scared. It's no different than, well, I'm not starting my company. I'm too scared. I don't know. If you actually start asking the questions, when I joined RSS.com, I had to go look at all the competitors and start understanding. I've never had a podcast. I know I work in podcasting. I don't have a podcast. I was like you, LeAnn, a virgin here going, I don't know what I'm doing. What am I looking for? And that gave me the greatest understanding of, if I'm anyone's shoes who's overwhelmed thinking about how to start a podcast, what am I looking at? And that's where RSS.com just became the easiest and simplest, because it took away all the confusion. As a business owner, there's so many things that you're overwhelmed already that you want it as a simple, easy process. And that became it.
And that is why I chose RSS.com to go with here, because Joyminder Solutions, Greg, if you don't know, is about providing those trusted tools, those curated connections, those ways for business owners to cut through some of that overwhelm. I mean, Google searches and even AI can produce so many options, and they may have reviews and all these, but when you can get to know the business owner and have listened to their podcast and visit their summit, and then you can see the tools that they're using, I think it helps business owners to just have a little more certainty in what they're moving forward to.
You touched on, if we go back to the relationships, ask questions.
Yeah.
If you're thinking about starting a business or you're starting your business, find a LeAnn, ask the questions and go, what tools do you use? What are you looking for? I mean, that's word of mouth becomes still the biggest way that most of us end up doing what we do. So it goes back to relationships. You have to ask those questions. You have to have those relationships.
Yep. And I've invited other people. I'll invite my audience right now. Check out LeAnnLyon.com. LeAnn is 5 letters, by the way, because my name can be spelled a lot of ways, but LeAnn, Lyon, sounds like the animal, spelled like the city, LYON.com. And there you can connect with me. On Mondays, I do something called Leaders League. On Tuesday, and I also do a Q&A call twice a week. Come on over, jump on Zoom with me, and I'm happy to answer these types of questions that Greg has just brought up, because those are valuable opportunities. And by the way, they're free. So when you decided then to start your LLC and really step into entrepreneurship, did you still have, in the earlier part of this conversation, you kind of talked about the trepidation. It's about leaving something you know for the unknown. And I think a lot of burned out professionals, the thing is, they're making decent money. I interviewed somebody recently, and he was a restaurant manager. He was very proud of the fact that he was making 6 figures. And somebody walked into his restaurant and said, "You work a whole year for that?" And he's like, "What do you mean?" And his mind just blew. Now, at this point, just a few years later, he said, "I could retire right now." By the way, he's 29. He said, "I could retire right now and continue to make 6 figures pretty much indefinitely." So it's just, sometimes you have to stretch yourself and be willing to take a look at something completely different. Is that always going to happen because you became an entrepreneur? No, no, it's not. As we know, the statistics are out there, the number of startups that won't flourish, that won't make it. But I have to believe, Greg, and you have a lot of business experience, I have to believe that some of those people just aren't putting in what it really takes to make it as well. I hate to blame the victim, but
100%. I would agree with. I mean, goes back to my point of what's your strategy, right? Am I trying to do everything? I've had entrepreneurs that took them 4 years before they finally launched something. I had this idea, but it took me 4 years until I finally did it. And then once they did it, why didn't I do this sooner, right? We all just have to lean into that level of discomfort, which sometimes it is forced upon us. And you're like, whoa, I didn't know this is where I was end up. I mean, for my story, I didn't know that I was end up in the entrepreneur space when I lost a job and I was burnt out trying to figure out what is it that I'm going to do. Opportunity came to me and this feels right. This feels like alignment, but this also feels, well, it's a step back and from a financial standpoint, which is the hardest thing. Like, back to your point of 6 figures, that is the hardest thing to go, I have a quote unquote cush job, or I have quote unquote a good salary benefits, and to go ahead and do the entrepreneur route where it's, I got my own benefits, I got my own payroll. It becomes a scary thing, which as I said, I'm still trying to figure out, but it now gives you the freedom that you didn't have. It gives you so much opportunity that if you actually invest, to your point, most people aren't investing in what they need to. They're not building a website. Their website may be terrible. They're focused on maybe social media and how do I drive people to connect with me on there. But if we think about Instagram, I can have 1 million followers on Instagram. Do I get to reach those 1 million followers? There's all these different aspects that a business owner, systems, I mean, that's your whole core. It's how do we put in the right systems here? I think a lot of the times you spend so much time thinking about the hustle or what you're used to, as opposed to taking the step back and going, hold on, I've learned a whole new process. The knowledge of whatever it is, the entrepreneur spirit that you're bringing to the table is there, but ask the questions, rely on some LeAnn to go, what am I supposed to be doing? How do I have the systems in place so that my business can actually flourish?
And I'm going to put it back. Also, reach out to somebody, Greg, because he's quite available. I got great resources from RSS.com. When I decided that that was a platform I was looking at, and there were others, I was attracted to the price point, first of all, very economical to be on RSS.com. Loved that as a restarting podcaster because I had to make a switch quickly. I had a show for 2 years. It was not on RSS, which was terrible. And when I wanted to get on this, I knew I had to be on something on RSS. But in addition, there's great articles, lots of information. Did you write those, by the way?
I am not. A, I'm only a few months in, but B, you do
Okay.
not want me writing the articles. So we got someone, Ashley, shout out to Ashley and Brian. They're doing a great job.
It's great. I have copied and shared many of your articles with people. Just as great. In fact, I used it to help name this show. I used a lot of that information. A couple of times, Greg, you've mentioned, do your research, make sure you know all these things. And that starts to feel, I think that's a reason some people don't get started because they're like, oh, there's too much. I have to know everything before I get started, or my podcast won't launch, or I have to know everything, or, what it means to be an influencer. I have to redo my entire wardrobe. By the way, that's why I wear the same thing every week, because I don't want to think about that.
Steve Jobs mindset.
About those.
Been there, done that. And I'm glad I finally leaned in and started that journey because, yeah, it's overwhelming. The domain, the business, the license, the tools, the systems, I'm used to having someone expense this and now I'm the one expensing it type deal. Back to your $400 for a domain. I'm unemployed. It's not what I want to do. Yeah, you're going to have to invest. Any one of us is invested in ourselves, whether it's higher education, whether it's trainings, whether it's courses, whether it's a coach. I think the biggest investment you make is into yourself. And if you want to start your business, don't get overwhelmed. Ask people. Find the person who actually can guide you there, and that's worth it. If I paid someone $5,000 to coach me and consult me on that path and remove some of that discomfort and fear, $5,000, I can struggle and go like, $5,000, I need that money. But if that's get me to make the leap, that $5,000 gets me quicker to $10,000, $100,000, whatever price point it is. That's the smart thing to do. You're not doing this alone. You can use someone to help you.
Excellent. And when you're over at rss.com, you can join the Slack community over there. If you're thinking about starting a podcast, this would be a great community to jump in because there's so many resources. Greg is actually running that. That's how we connected. And he's in there, he's in the trenches, he's giving ideas, he's talking and working with a monetization platform, but really excellent advice and community being built over there as well. You've done quite well. That community isn't terribly old, but it's grown quite nicely.
Thank you. And I guess you bring up a great point. Anyone listening, everyone should have a podcast. And I think that is a key piece to what I mean, even before I joined RSS. So yes, Billboard, have a podcast and host it on rss.com. But besides that, the reason you should have a podcast is it's open up the doors. Think about if you are thinking, where do I take this entrepreneur journey? Should I do this? Starting a podcast is the easiest way because you can now start asking people that you're probably, once again, the relationships and connections you need. I'm going to start asking people for help. Well, can I start a podcast people on that will help me make me smarter, make me educated in terms of things that I may not know? Or if the business I'm starting to, you're overwhelmed, I'm going get clients, Greg, I'm not a extrovert like you. I can't go hustle. What systems do I do? How do I bring in new clients? Podcast is the easiest and greatest way to do it. And this is what I coach everyone on. Podcast allows you to, especially if you're starting a new business, have 52 conversations with potential prospects. Figure out, once again, who's your ICP, who's your ideal client, who do you want to be working with, what is the business that you're starting, and then from that standpoint, you can now start bringing on those experts. It's a retail, if it's a retail or it's a shopping, right? You're Greg, I'm not bringing on a customer who's buy my $50, whatever it is, I product, but you can start bringing on maybe the vendors. You can start bringing on the companies that you would love to have your product in. There's so many different ways to think about the strategy. Once again, you're not thinking about it from a download standpoint. You're using podcasting. Build your know, like, and trust. Build your relationships is your business development tool. There's so much power to having a podcast, especially as a solopreneur, because that's the biggest thing. You're scared about, how will people know me? How do I get this marketing done? A podcast literally will be the conversations you have that gets remarketed. You'll build out all these brand assets. So your quote unquote marketing assets, if you're overwhelmed, all comes from the conversations you get to have with a podcast. And so even if the people you're bringing on aren't end up buying from you, they're be promoting you, assuming you go ahead and you help empower them to promote their episode on your show. And so you're leveraging a network, you're leveraging their network to help you grow. You're helping them grow because you're introducing that person to your network. It is such a great way to build a business, regardless of what you're thinking about. So once again, you're probably burnt out, overwhelmed. This and starting a podcast doesn't have to be hard. I mean, we're doing this over Zoom right now, so it's inexpensive from that standpoint. I'm not looking about the downloads. So there's a lot of things here that can minimize your overwhelm and hopefully get you on the right path.
Yeah, I love it. There is so much wisdom in what you're sharing. Listeners, rewind, listen to that again. I'm serious. Rewind. And if you are listening on this podcast, just know, come on over to YouTube and check us out there as well. We do this visually. Not everybody does. You certainly don't. I referenced my outfit earlier, and Greg caught me. I'm usually much better at that, but I showed my microphone, which I'm not a big, I got to have the microphone right in front of my mouth kind of person, but it sits off to the side generally. But I showed it without verbally describing it. I'm almost always good at that, of saying what I'm seeing. But I will tell the podcast listeners, come on over and check it out, because Superman here that I'm talking to, you told me when we first met, that's your go-to Halloween costume. Am I right?
There we go. We go
Oh dear.
We went from Superman. We're now Clark Kent. If I wanted, I could take out the curl. I just put on glasses and that's it. It's the easiest Halloween costume every year.
Yep. There you go. So now you know, even if you don't come over to YouTube, you know exactly what Greg Wasserman looks like. So go ahead.
I was say there's a new Superman just came out. So there we go. It's fitting.
Excellent. Where do people find you? Where is the best way to find you?
I mean, everyone's end up signing up for rss.com and they'll find me in Slack, leading the charge of how do I help them. But I live on LinkedIn. That's been the social platform of choice for me. As I say, life is about time and relationships. So the biggest compliment you can give LeAnn, besides leaving her a review because her show's great, it is reaching out to me and saying, I really enjoyed what you had to say. I would love to talk more, because my door's always open. And then I usually turn that into a LinkedIn post, because this is the joy. Most of us are talking in a void. It looks like it's just the two of us here, but I mean that there's thousands of people that are listening or consuming, have an audience. And so for me, I live on LinkedIn, but please come ahead. And as a relationship broker, I mean, that's the thing. I literally just connect and talk to people for a living, whether we talk podcasting or whether we just talk about your business, because my brain just is, who do I connect you with? What communities are there? Or in this case, work with LeAnn.
In fact, we experienced that just when we set up this opportunity. I think both of us were like, and check this out and check this out, and I can connect you here, and here's an invitation to that. I think we're both in that mindset because it's fun. And really, that is what life is about. It is about the relationship, not the toys, not the stuff. You can't take that with you. I'll say that before I start every episode, I say a little prayer and I say, we're going to have a conversation today, but this episode is going to come out at a time that we may set the time and day that it comes out, but in my faith perspective, I say God knows who's going to be listening. And so I ask for wisdom as to what we say and how it comes across, that those people in the future get what they need. And that I say that before every episode.
Lovely.
Yeah, thank you. Well, listeners, if you're still here, and I'm glad you are, we have a bonus for you because we're putting this episode up just weeks before you can come listen to Greg again. So if you're hearing this in August of 2025-ish, the September 2025 Restart Your Business Summit is starting on September 16th. Greg is going to be one of our speakers. So you'll be bringing a whole different spiel. There you're a speaker, not a guest. You'll be presenting, not being interviewed. It's a little bit different. And we're so excited to have you be part of this summit. You want to give us a little sneak preview to what you'll be talking about there?
I mean, I'm probably going to double down on this topic of my whole thing is everyone should have a podcast, and you're not a podcaster, you're a brand. So focus on building your brand, not focus on building the downloads of the podcast, and how you can go about doing that, how to empower yourself so that you can do that. And once again, if you're burnt out, this is a great way to help you overcome some of the discomfort you may be having.
You're a brand that has a podcast. There we go. Get it. Furthermore, come on over to Joyminder Solutions, joyminder.com, and check out our curated connections, because that is another place that you will be able to connect with Greg Wasserman. Not everybody gets to go there. This is my trusted connections that are business-minded, business-focused, that I trust to refer people to. And there can be coaches for mindset or business or finances, lots of things in there. But Greg is generously applied to be part of that. So we'll be putting that in. It will be in place by the time this episode drops. So we'll be good there. Final. Anything else that you would like to share with our burned out professionals that maybe have or maybe have not yet taken that step towards entrepreneurship?
Well, I'll leave them with a little gift.
Yay.
You'll provide the link, so feel free to sign up for rss.com. LeAnn will provide a link, but I'll give you a promo code, RSS Get Started, for 1 month free. So it's RSS Get Started, and that gives you 1 month free of hosting. If you already have a podcast, you can switch, and it's 6 months free. So not a bad gig.
Wow, excellent. Yes, and there are so many options. I really, truly am so satisfied with being at rss.com. One more billboard there, right? I appreciate it. Greg, this has been absolutely delightful. I'm so blessed that you were here today.
Thank you, everyone, for giving us the time.
Yeah, and on both of our behalfs, I want to thank our audience for joining us on this show, Beyond the Business Plan to Unleash Your Joyful Business Potential. Remember, entrepreneurship is a voyage that you can and probably should take with others. So find your tribe for the journey. Give us a like or subscribe or whatever you do on your favorite podcast or video platform to keep shining and aligning with your purpose and Joyminder Solutions. Then come on back every week for our new inspiring episodes. And until next time, I'm LeAnn Lyon, your Chief Joy Officer, LeAnnLyon.com, signing off. Keep spreading the joy, keep leading with heart, and I will catch you on the next wave of success. Hey, coffee aficionados and entrepreneurs, LeAnn Lyon here. Are you craving that caffeine kick, but
Looking for a healthier alternative? Well, 9 years ago, I discovered the ultimate collection of energizing options to fuel your entrepreneurial spirit without the jitters. Discover your next favorite pick me up today and keep your business dreams brewing strong. Hear what it did for me by visiting this website, whyIlovemycoffee.com. Yes, that's the URL, whyIlovemycoffee.com, because your peak performance deserves more than just another cup of joe. Thank you all for joining us today on Beyond the Business Plan. It's been a joy and a privilege to share this space with you. For more inspiring stories, tools, and actionable insights, make sure to follow us on your favorite video platform. Visit my website, LeAnnLyon.com, and keep leading with heart. And I'll catch you on the next wave of success.